You can certainly trace a lot of the current events back to the destabilization of the region with the invasion of Iraq, although the much more proximate cause is the Syrian civil war. Without the war against Assad, or rather Assad's war against his own people, I don't think ISIS would have arisen.
And now the mood in America is said to be moving towards supporting boots on the ground. I mean, amongst ordinary people, perhaps not very strongly, but moving in that direction. But that surely is ruled out by the reality that Libya, for example, which you did support, combined with the failures in Afghanistan and Iraq, surely render us not in a good position to do any more war.
I would be absolutely amazed if the United States were to put boots on the ground beyond special forces in Iraq. I also think that's exactly what ISIS wants us to do. The best way to recruit for ISIS is to have American soldiers with their guns once again on the ground in the Middle East.
The problem is that Mr. Obama himself looks weak in his incapacity to do anything about Syria and anything about Iraq and ISIS. I mean, he's in a terribly unlucky position.
Well, I think he's gotten himself into that position with respect to Syria. He's had many, many, many opportunities to do something else in Syria and has decided that inaction is better than action. With respect to ISIS and Iraq, let's see how this plays out. ISIS is growing. On the other hand, predictions even a couple months ago were going to be that ISIS was rolling up to Baghdad, and nothing concentrates the mind of the different coalitions in Iraq like a existential threat.
You were very close, a very key aide to Mrs. Clinton. Did you always have to email her to her private account? Were you aware that she had no interest in emailing through the normal channels of the State Department itself?
If truth be known, I often emailed from my private account because it was far easier to email from a private account if you were not in the State Department than to try to get onto your State Department email. Most people had two accounts. I was not aware that Secretary Clinton was coming from a private account or a State Department account. Her name is obscured in such a way you can imagine that not everybody can say hillaryclinton.gov. But what did not surprise me is that she used only one email, because particularly given where the complexity of her life and how much she was traveling, having two email accounts was very complicated.
You know, the charge is that she did that in order to do other business which she didn't want seen publicly, particularly with the Clinton Foundation.
I just don't think that makes sense, because if that had been her rationale, she would have separated out. She would have had a private account where she could do stuff with respect to the foundation and a State Department account. In fact, she was completely focused on being the best Secretary of State she could be. I mean, I think when you look at her emails, what you will see is that her email is so intense with respect to foreign policy that she could have had very little time to be doing her foundation business. I mean, this is the luxury of hindsight and looking at the foundation since she left. But I never heard much about the foundation when we were in the State Department, and she was completely focused on her State Department email. What was important was that she'd gotten off the campaign email, and she clearly knew that she couldn't have a campaign email. She was now going to be Secretary of State, and she was going to have one email.